Hey, Anish Shroff here, Bloomfield High School class of 2000, currently a sportscaster at ESPN. Go Bengals! I think it gives you perspective. I think it's always good to kind of remember, where you came from. I think being from Bloomfield, it gave me probably a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I hate to use that cliche, but I remember when I went to Syracuse for the first time, and it wasn't 74,000 to go there at the time.
Yeah.
But this is a middle-class, blue-collar town. And really for the first time academically, socially, I'm in a setting where I'm the poor kid. And you guys will feel that when you go to college too. Like, you're not really aware of what Bloomfield is till you step out. It's in the shadow of New York City, but it's a small town, and it is a bubble. And so for me, that experience going there and being surrounded by kids who went to private schools and prep schools and had all these different means and had things that we just didn't have access to growing up, it kind of gave me a chip on my shoulder to work harder. And it kind of gave me the motivation, all right, I might be from little old Bloomfield, but I can still do this, and I'm still going to be good at this, and I'm going to beat you. And so I think it lights a little bit of a competitive fire. I cover lacrosse now, which is about as a posh sport as you can get for a guy who grew up in Bloomfield. And it's funny, a lot of coaches will say, it's not as true anymore, but they said before, when you were recruiting a kid in lacrosse, you never wanted to recruit the kid with a three-car garage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing. Like, I'm now in school with a bunch of kids who grew up with three-car garages.
Right.
And so I felt like I had something to
prove. Yeah.
That just because I went from public high school in New Jersey, that it's not Montclair Kimberly, it's not Newark Academy, it's not one of these prep schools, it's not Don Bosco, it's not West Essex, it's not Ridge, it's not Ridgewood. I can still make it. And so I think it sort of taught me, a little bit of that bulldog mentality when approaching my career and life. I knew what I wanted to do since I was really little. I knew what I wanted to do. It's not a job that you can train for.
Right.
It's not a job that you can wake up one day when you're a junior in college and say, I think I want to cover sports. You're either subconsciously, knowingly, unknowingly preparing for it your whole life, or you're not. And so when I was a kid, we didn't have cable. So for me, when sports was on TV, that was a big deal. And back when I grew up, even on cable, sports wasn't on TV in the same volume as it is now. So when it was on TV, I watched. NBA on NBC every Sunday. I was watching Jordan and the Bulls. And they had a triple header, and I'd watch all the games. Anytime the Yankees were on TV, I'd watch. When they weren't on TV, I'd listen to them on the radio. When I'd come home from school, I'd turn on 66 and I'd listen to Mike and the Mad Dog. So that was kind of always there in the background, that white noise. When I woke up in the morning, we had a little radio in the bathroom, and 10:10 Wins News, and I knew, 22 past the hour, it was a 15 and 45 past the hour, they'd have the sports updates. So I would time my showers between those times so I could listen to the sports updates. I can't get in at 17 because then you're gonna miss the sports updates. This is before the internet was big and you had everything on your phone. That's how you got the news. Man, I sound old right now. But I've sort of always wanted to know. And then probably when I was a sophomore in high school, I said, hey man, I got to do something with all this knowledge. If I know who won the World Series in 1964, there's not a lot of practical uses for that.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured this is what I wanted to do, and I started looking at schools, and I saw the guys who went to Syracuse, and I was basically crafting a plan probably since I was 14, 15 years old. So Syracuse, Boston University, and NYU were at the top of my list.
I get mine too.
And it came down to Syracuse and BU, and I liked BU's campus better. I liked being in the city, you know, the fact that it was more relatable for me, having grown up right outside of New York City. But there was something about Syracuse and going through, you know, their wall of fame and seeing Costas and Len Berman, and Marv Albert, and Dick Stockton, and Mike Tirico, and Ted Koppel, Sean McDonough. I was just like, there's something in the water here, and that was the place for me. You guys remember the game where Marcus Smart pushed a fan?
Yes.
I did that game.
You did that game.
I did that game in Texas. He was at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So people say memorable, that jumps to mind.
That's
Yeah, but I remember that. I remember watching the game.
Yeah, and so that was a crazy night in Lubbock. So, you know, I did that game. You know, for me the last couple of years, having a chance to call ACC tournament basketball games has been a lot of fun. Being in that league, I think more than, you know, I've been fortunate. I've called basketball conference championships. The last 2 years, this will be my third year as the lead voice for college lacrosse. So getting to do championship weekend for LAX is always fun.
That's good.
You know, I've done bowl games for football and the FCS championship. Kind of a unique experience was North Dakota State, which has won 7 of the last 8 FCS championships. So I did 3, 4, and 5.
Wow.
A quarterfinal, semis, championship. So to kind of chronicle this dynasty in the middle of nowhere, Fargo, North Dakota, was really cool.
That is cool.
That was a lot of fun. It was just a unique environment. And then, you know, sometimes I think you just appreciate, you know, 2014, I did 4 Clemson games at Clemson. It was Deshaun Watson's freshman year. And to see the genesis of what was to come was really cool. And got to know Dabo, and to be in that little cauldron, in that bubble where you're thinking, all right, Watson's only a freshman, but they just opened up a championship window for as long as he's at school. And to see the pieces put in place of a culture. Doing my first game at Duke and Cameron. Doing my first game at Syracuse, working for ESPN was a huge deal. It was a Syracuse-Villanova basketball game, and I remember going back and I'm thinking all these games I did in college at the Carrier Dome, but to be back as a pro, you take that for granted when you're in school, and you realize how hard it is to get back there. So I think you appreciate all those moments.
You started working at ESPN in like 2008, right?
2008, yeah.
Right, okay. So what has been the best part of being a sports broadcaster for ESPN since 2008?
Working with, and what my opinion is the best and most talented people in the industry. You know, we get criticized, I get that, but I think part of it is because we have the biggest target and we have the most eyeballs on us.
Right.
But I work with people who have helped to make me better. I have people who I hope I've helped make better. The camaraderie, the team effort, what goes into a game production, what goes into a broadcast. You know, people just see, it's the iceberg analogy, people just see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see what's underneath the water, and there's a lot of work that goes in. And, you know, to see the John Andersons and Scott Van Pelts of the world craft the lead, and to make words sing, to see, you know, the inflection of a Joe Tessitore or Sean McDonough making the play come alive. Being around that, I think, inspires.
Right.
And so to me, you know, being in that atmosphere and like proving that, hey, I belong here and I can hold my own, that's rewarding too. A cool story that kind of goes into that. When I auditioned my first day, actually not even my first day, when I auditioned for the job, I'm in the newsroom working on a script. And Bob Lee, Bloomfield High School, and he's the most respected person in that building. I was kind of walking by and I get up about to introduce myself to him, and my producer kind of sees me, you know, and Jeff Anderson. I say, hey Bob, this is Anish. He's auditioning, interviewing. You know, Bob's probably the guy. You see a million of these guys come through all the time. You know, like 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10. I don't know how many gets the job. So he's like, oh, okay, good luck to you. So I'm like, hey Bob, Bloomfield High School. And he goes, another Bengal, huh? So Bob, unbeknownst to me, in his office, we have this internal feed where you can watch, you know, things being recorded in-house.
Right.
So he's watching my audition. I have no idea, and then, I don't know, maybe a few months after I start, somebody sends me this blog item, and it was an interview with Bob Lee, talking where Bob says, one of the coolest parts of his tenure at ESPN was seeing another Bengal hired. And he's like, I remember watching his audition and rooting for him. And Bob's office was, that back wall, my cubicle was right there. And so I kind of got to know him and pick his brain, and you know, venerable guy, man, and one of the best dudes in the business. But it was kind of always cool, like having that connection,
Yeah.
because he was the Pope, you know, out there.
When you're in the booth, do you have any like signature phrases or?
No, I don't believe it.
You don't believe in it?
I
Why
believe in
not?
being organic.
Organic.
Yeah, I think being genuine and being authentic is, to me, the crux of what we do. And so if you're waiting for something to happen so you can say something that you've already planned, I think it loses its authenticity. I think it becomes not just repetitive. I think, you know, to me, I like the guys who are genuine, more legitimately in the moment, not trying to manufacture the moment. You know, for me, I look at myself as the caretaker of the moment. I don't try to be bigger than the moment. Sometimes the moment doesn't need me. Sometimes I'm there to supplement or complement the moment. But I should never be bigger than the moment. And so when guys do that, I think they want to make it about themselves rather than make it about the moment. That's my opinion.
Makes a lot of sense.
Similar to that, before going live and calling a game, do you have a specific routine you go through?
Yeah, there's a significant amount of prep that goes in during the week. You know, prep for a football game is probably 50, 60 hours. It's not unlike studying for a test. It's knowing every name and number called, knowing facts about these guys, watching a ton of tape so you're able to better tee up your analyst if you're able to see something. Hey, they're playing 3 deep. How come they're dropping the safety on 3rd down? They blitz from the corner here. They like to run spread on the goal line and run quarterback draw. If I can pick up 4 or 5 things while watching tape during the week, so I usually watch 2-3 games per team per week, just as prep, and then I'm putting, you know, these giant boards together with all my notes. Wish it was easy as just showing up and doing the game, but it's not. And then there's a ton of reading that goes involved. You know, it's involved where you're reading news stories, you're reading news items. You know, it's not just stats. People think it's stats. Stats can help tell a story. You can't tell a story with stats.
Right.
What makes these guys human? At the lacrosse game yesterday, Duke and Syracuse. And so if I told you Stephen Rafis, you tell me what sticks with you, right, as a viewer. You know, Stephen Rafis led Syracuse in points last year. He's 4 for his last 27 shooting. Stephen Rafis has 5 older sisters who all played lacrosse, and Sister Abigail says it's like having 6 moms. What stays with you?
The second one?
The second one.
6 moms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't remember the stats.
No.
You forgot them already. So finding the stories that stay with you, finding what's human, what's real, bringing these characters to life, getting people to relate to them. And then, yeah, obviously, if a kid's putting up ridiculous numbers, you do that. But we're storytellers.
I guess, like building connections with the players, make your job easier in the booth?
Yeah, we always talk to players and coaches. I'm calling a lacrosse game at Princeton tomorrow. I just had 2 conference calls with the coaches. I'll go to shoot around tomorrow. I'm going to do a basketball game, football game, go to practice, talk to the players. The more you can get, you know, people now have so much information at their disposal.
Right.
You can get a lot of the stuff that I'm getting. So what can I give you that you don't have? That's the access. Hey, when we were at their practice, this is what we saw. This is what he told us. That's the stuff that I try to bring out, and I think a lot of the guys who, you know, live at a high level want to put out, you know, something for you to take. What can you give them that they don't already know?
Yeah.
Can you take me behind the curtain?
Right. Okay. Who are the best athletes you've ever interviewed, and who are the best athletes you've ever announced for?
I don't think of it that way. You know,
Okay.
I just, you don't really get starstruck, do it.
Okay.
And I cover college sports primarily, so, you know, I did Kansas when Embiid and Wiggins were there.
Well, then you get a lot of former pros, though.
What's that?
Oh, you get not former, future pros.
You get a lot of future
Yeah.
pros. You know, I mean, I work with guys, you know, my football partner now played in the NFL. My basketball partner, Corey Alexander, was an All-American at Virginia,
Yeah.
you know, played in the NBA. You know, LaFonso Ellis was a first-round pick. You know, you do games with these guys, so You know, Jay Williams, same thing. You know, like so it's just, you know, they become real people to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And same with the coaches and the players you cover. Like going and interviewing Mike Krzyzewski is not a big deal for me. Same if I go to Jim Boeheim or Roy Williams because you've seen them, they know you. And so going to CK sometimes because it's like, you guys ever go to Cameron Indoor? It's like a high school gym. TV makes that place look magical. I tell you, when you walk in, you're going to be like, wait, that's it? Wooden bleachers, seats about 4,000 or 5,000. It's a high school gym. It's not much bigger than what you guys have here. The whole building is smaller than Bloomfield High School. It's small. And they have this little back alleyway, and you go down a tunnel, and you're walking down a tunnel, and it's late and early, Duane Hill, and Tunnel Lane. You finally make your way, and there's this gold-plated wooden coffee table with a giant gold K in the middle. And then behind the door, you know, Krzyzewski will come out. Hey guys, what can I do for you?
Oh, that's good. When you, just to go on that, when you initially started announcing, was there a starstruck like feeling? Was that element there?
I'm trying to think. No, not really, because it's one of the things at Syracuse they kind of hammer into us, you know.
Right.
We were not really allowed to do games until late in our sophomore year or our junior year. So you kind of have a template for how you're supposed to act when you're in the press box. You don't ask for an autograph. You don't ask for a picture. There's a certain way to approach it. There's a certain way to do it. And so, by the time you get in, we were told, hey, suit and tie, when you show up to a game, even if you're student radio, because you're representing WAER, you're representing Syracuse University. That meant something to us. And so, it's funny, the only time I would say I've been starstruck for an interview was, even a little bit, the last time I asked anybody for an autograph. When I was a senior in college, we had an author by the name of Salman Rushdie come speak to us. And, you guys can Google him, I don't want to bore you with the backstory. He has a fascinating backstory. And I'm a big fan of his work, and I've read a bunch of his books. And one of the books that he read, the Ayatollah of Iran was so upset by it, he put a fatwa on his head, which meant, it was the duty of every living Muslim to kill him if they saw him. And this guy lived in hiding for years, and now he was out of hiding, and the Ayatollah died. And anyway, he was speaking, and I had read the book that got that, and I asked him to sign it. And that was the last time I was probably actually ever like, wow, starstruck.
That's good.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in awe of a player's performance, just like calling the game and just?
I mean, if you're not a fan, I think you still have to have that in you, which makes you a fan, and it gets you riled up. Sometimes it's a kid who just goes off 30, 35 points. I mean, countless times. Yeah.
Do you constantly announce, or consistently, I should say, announce for the same teams at conferences, or does it vary?
It depends on the sport. Basketball, I'm primarily ACC.
Yeah.
Football, all over. We don't find out our assignments for football usually until 6 or 7 days out. Basketball, we'll get our whole schedule in October or November.
That's like pre-season or early season.
Right, so the schedule's out. Football, the game times usually only come out a week or two in advance. And so they don't make those assignments weekend. Usually I come back from the game on a Sunday, and usually Sunday by the time I land around noon, I find out where I'm going the next week. And then lacrosse, is the lead voice. I'm usually doing whatever the biggest game is. And so historically, that's kind of been ACC. Now it's some Big Ten. Yale won it last year, so Ivy League. So just kind of depends on the sport. And then baseball. I do a little bit of college baseball when I'm done with lacrosse, and so that's a regional or super regional. I'm saying that. And I kind of we get 4 teams from 4 different conferences.
What's the toughest call you've ever had to make, like game-wise or sport-wise? So
I did the Maryland game this year for football, the week of the DJ Durkin debacle. So I don't know if you're familiar with that story, DJ Durkin, who was suspended.
Yeah.
They're playing Michigan State. We're doing that game on Saturday. That Monday or Tuesday, Durkin's reinstated. And 2 days later, he's fired. And so to kind of handle that, anytime you have one of these, legalese type issues, we call them Lydia Craver stories because she's our assignment editor and she's on, all these sensitive subjects, whether it's the Louisville scandal or Bernie Fine stuff, or the Sandusky stuff that I had to cover when I was in studio for Joe Pond, Penn State. That stuff's difficult. So you have to find a balance with your tone. You have to, but at the same time, there's a place and time when your opinions warrant. I'll tell you, the hardest one. Now that I think about it, I did a baseball regional last year, which involved Luke Heinrich, and I had to call a game in which he pitched. Are you guys familiar with the Luke Heinrich?
The Oregon State
child?
Yes.
The Oregon State guy.
Oregon State.
Yeah, the pitcher.
And so I'm at Corvallis, and packed stadium, and everybody gives this guy a standing ovation. And like my skin is crawling.
Just morals.
Yeah, I felt, because deep down inside, I felt really strongly about it. And the way the regionals work, it's 4 teams, double elimination.
Yeah.
So if you get down to what they call, if necessary, Game 7, it's the last 2 teams. So for Game 6, it was Oregon State and LSU, because Oregon State was undefeated. If they beat LSU, the regional ends, and Oregon State moves up. If LSU wins, they play a Game 7 tomorrow, and the winner of that moves up. So the way it was working was Game 7 would have been on the first day of the MLB draft. And so for the Heimlich story, we had told it just facts only up until that point. Doing the JT Snow and I were together, JT Snow with my evidence. So this is what happened, this is what's been reported, this is what's out there, this is the actions the school took or didn't take, and we just kind of put it out there as facts. There was very little opinion, and it's one of these things, you say it, you lay out, you don't say anything for about 10 seconds, and then fouled off right side 2-1, and then you kind of get back into the game call. But had he been drafted on Monday, now you have to react to it.
Yeah.
Because now it's a story. And I was willing to do that, but you have to be so careful about what you say.
Yeah.
Because, again, the fans a lot of them are warped. And so, they'll say, oh, it was alleged. No, it wasn't alleged. He pled guilty. In the court of law, that is not alleged. Well, it's he said, she said. No, he was convicted. He pled guilty. And so that distinction is significant.
Yeah.
And so if you say alleged, you're wrong. And so really being on point with what those words are, because it matters, and it's something that can make you liable if you slip up.
Right.
It opens you up to a lot. So that was an incredibly difficult weekend for me, because I think I felt strongly about it deep down inside, and to see him cheered and treated like a hero, personally I had a hard time. And so I said, okay, I'll pick my spots. And unfortunately, we didn't have it. Well, I guess fortunately, there was no Game 7, so we never really had to address it on that level. Had there been, that would have been a hard day.
It's a totally different call.
Totally different call.
With that, does ESPN moderate what you can say on it?
No.
Okay, so they don't.
No.
So in that situation.
Now, like if you say something can get you in trouble, sure.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Right.
So, but they give you the liberty to say what you want.
They'll basically say, hey, make sure you get the facts right.
Right.
Okay, here's that.
Okay.
Now, if you are going to express an opinion on it, in these delicate situations, we do have people who help us out.
Yeah.
They'll send us a write-up. This business is weird, where the higher you go, the more people you have to help you. In the beginning, you're doing everything yourself. So we have an assignment editor who will say, hey, these are the facts, these are the bullet points. I'm reading that thing 10 times. I make sure and I have it in front of me.
Yeah.
In baseball, you can have your notes in front of me. You don't have to memorize as much as other sports. So I can kind of go off of that and highlight and make bullet points and make notes. But if you're going to go with your opinion on something, you have to make sure that what you're saying jives with the facts that are in place. You can't say something that's off base or not true, or have a ridiculous opinion on something based on something that doesn't exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have support. I think we have support, and they tell us sometimes to be careful. And sometimes they'll tell us, hey, if you're going to go down this road, make sure you check off all your boxes.
So when you're expressing your opinions live, that's when you have to use the facts as your foundation for your opinion.
For those kind of stories,
yeah.
For those sensitive stories, yes.
Okay.
I think, that's just being responsible. That's just being a journalist.
It's understandable.
I think, if I'm talking about a guy like I was on a game yesterday, and he's struggled all season and he doesn't look right, and I say that, I'm allowed to say like that. That stuff that you're reacting to in the moment. They want you to do that. They want you to cut through. They want you to have, you know, they don't want you to be wishy-washy. You know, if you believe what you say, they want you to say it. So,
How'd you end up just kind of calling college games? Like, how'd that end up happening?
yeah, it's funny. You know, grow up around here, you don't really get exposed
Yeah,
to too many college sports. It's not a big college town, and so I was a big pro sports guy growing up. I mean, I was a huge Yankees fan. I was a huge, big Jets fan. You know, Michael Jordan was my favorite player, still is to this day, and he's better than LeBron. I don't care what you young kids say. And so, you know, I grew up with like Jordan posters on my wall. You know, I was a Devils fan, and so I was a pro sports guy. The one sport I really did love though was college basketball. I was actually a big Seton Hall fan growing up. They were really good.
still good.
Well, they're better now, but I'm talking late 80s, early 90s. Around here, Seton Hall was bigger than the Nets. The Nets were still,
They were in New Jersey.
yeah, they were still they were at the Meadowlands.
Right.
So old Brendan Byrne. It wasn't just Seton Hall; it was the Hall. It was the Hall. PJ Carlissimo was the head coach. Terry DeHare and Danny Hurley, you know, Luther Wright and Anthony Avent. They had some really good teams. They went to the championship game against Glen Rice in Michigan in '89. So Seton Hall was like the team. So I kind of grew up on it. I hated Syracuse. You know, Adrian Autry used to always like kill him. Now I know Reddy's, you know, one of the assistant coaches at Syracuse. I'm like, man, I used to hate you. I was like, really? So yeah, I was a big Seton Hall fan. So that's how I got into college basketball. So I've always loved college basketball. I was not a huge college football guy until I got to college, and then it was big time college football. And Syracuse was, you know, when I got there, Syracuse was coming off a great run in the 90s. You know, I got there fall 2000, so Syracuse in the 90s was a perennial top 25 team. And then when I got there, sophomore year, they were ranked 15th in the country. It was Dwight Freeney's senior year. And then they have not been ranked in any poll in any season until this past year. This past year was their best season since my sophomore year of college. It was a bad time. So I got there like right when the Titanic was hitting the iceberg. But that's why I became a college fan, and that's why I became a lacrosse fan. You know, I covered lacrosse for my college radio station. We had a kid by the name of Mike Powell, who was probably one of the 4 or 5 greatest college players of all time. And he graduated with me, so I saw him for 4 years.
I think we'll wrap it up. So, to any future sports journalists or broadcasters, could you offer any piece of advice?
Yeah, read.
Read?
Yeah,
Okay.
read. And you know, and I would hope this place encourages you. 3, 2, and 1. It's a great day to be a Bloomfield Bengal.